Good evening. Welcome. This is 40 Days Ministries recap session of our November 2nd, 2024 session. On November 2nd, we did our 176th documented session. It was the part B of the third seal. The old scholars were 19th century men, and during the 1800s, which would be the 19th century, economics itself was fairly young. So economic terms that we know and use today were not commonly known, and they kept referring to scarcity driving prices up. Now, of course, I like to be accurate, so the terminology that we use must be clarified. This is a situation of shortage, not scarcity. Scarcity is around us all the time. Scarcity is the situation where we live in, where the Earth's natural resources are insufficient for satisfying mankind's unlimited needs and wants. Scarcity has given rise to something we call the market system or price mechanism, where demand and supply for goods interact to determine quantities of traded goods and prices. If this sounds confusing, demand, what buyers want. Low prices for plenty goods. Supply, what sellers want. High prices for plenty goods. Now, the scarcity, which has created the price mechanism, it leads to us finding prices of quantities of goods. And normally, that will not drive prices to ridiculous levels. Shortages, however, will do that. And that's what this horseman is going to bring. He's not bringing scarcity, he's bringing shortages. Many scholars call it a famine. In today's world, there is no global famine. The proof of that is the fact that there are so many overweight people out there. And people always like to take offense for this. If you take offense, that's your problem. The fact is there are overweight people out there. And if you look at pictures, we see a lot of videos today, pictures of like the 1970s on a beach and the people. And then you show the pictures of a modern day beach. And all our people on the beach are like way overweight compared to back then. What that says is we don't have a famine. We don't have a food shortage. People have too much food because on top of obviously people consuming too much, a lot of it is thrown away. There are famines in certain countries, but globally we don't have a famine. The distribution of food globally is what is poor. That's why many people are starving. Now, that said, the shortage of the black horse would be caused by famine in the food markets, partially because of the war of the red horse, because the red horse is going to create war, lead to war, not create, lead to war. And there's going to be destruction of farming infrastructure, destruction of distribution infrastructure, destruction of storage, damage of goods in storage. Part of that, of course, because of poor decision making when people have to allocate resources. And remember, this world is the world that accepts the Antichrist and welcomes him. So I suspect it will be the system of the alphabet people and their warped or depraved thinking. Right now, America has a president who is against the alphabet people's nonsense because he's determined there's man and there's woman. Two genders. And there are people who will fight to tell you there are hundreds. And there are people that will fight to say men should be in women's washrooms if they say they're women. And drag queens could have story time with children. And while there has been some pushback on that, when this president goes, that's going to come back stronger. The alphabet people are the loudest members of society. Their supporters are the loudest members of society. And we're seeing it right now with the ICE business. They are also the dumbest members of society. So when they make decisions, I guarantee you those decisions are going to be terrible. If Kamala Harris won elections in America, The protest for ICE would not be happening, but America would be a mess. It would be a mess internally. Right now, America is rebuilding. There is very high levels of employment that would not achieved in the past 5 years or more. American infrastructure and economic infrastructure being rebuilt. Investment opportunities for foreigners in America are coming in, and Americans in other countries are going out. All of this is not going to last because the depraved mind is coming. This rider and black horse are going to bring shortage, famine, inflation, and suffering, global suffering that will accompany these things. We have some examples of famine as a result of human wickedness. And here we see it. Deuteronomy 28, 23 to 24. And the heavens over your head shall be bronze, and the earth under you shall be iron. The Lord will make the rain of your land powder. From heaven, dust shall come down on you until you are destroyed. This passage warns of a famine, dust, not rain. Famine as a potential consequence of disobedience to God's laws. Proverbs 11:26, the people cursed him who holds back grain, but a blessing is on the head of him who sells it. This shows that people who hide necessities are disliked by God. And this is happening right now. We have people taking advantage of vulnerable society. People who take advantage of widows, orphans, single parents, poor people in general, and their desperation. This is what the curse on him who holds back the grain, that's what it's talking about. Those people are going to suffer for doing wrong to vulnerable people who need care and love rather than abuse. Jeremiah 14:12, the Lord said to me, do not pray for the welfare of this people. Though they fast, I will not hear their cry. And though they offer burnt offerings and grain offering, I will not accept them, but I will consume them by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. God didn't hear Israel in the past. And it's going to be worse for these seal judgments because these are the end times. Israel got chances after Jeremiah, but this world today will not. God will punish men with famine. Jeremiah 14:15 to 16. Therefore, thus says the Lord concerning the prophets who prophesy in my name, although I did not send them, and who say, sword and famine shall not come upon this land. By sword and famine, those prophets shall be consumed, and the people to whom they prophesy shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem, victims of famine and sword, with none to bury them, their wives, their children, their sons and their daughters, for I will pour out their evil upon them. This passage describes a famine in Judah that is attributed to the people's sin and rebellion against God. Those people listened to false prophets who lied and said pretty and nice things. Those prophets will be consumed by sword and famine. And the people they lie to are going to suffer as well. This is something to warn us. We must never seek false teachers out, no matter how wealthy or good looking or pleasant or nice they may seem. Amos 4:9, I struck you with blight and mildew, your many gardens and your vineyards, your fig trees and your olive trees, the locust devoured. Yet you did not return to me, declares the Lord. God hits people with famine and the suffering. It's to cause them to turn to him. Amos 5:11b, you have planted pleasant vineyards, but you shall not drink their wine. People will have access to nice things, but they will not get to enjoy them. This passage condemns Israelites for their oppression of the poor, their neglect of justice, which leads to famine and other hardships. This is one of those passages in Amos where we are taught, take care of the poor. Matthew 24:7, for nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there'll be famines and earthquakes in various places. Jesus mentions famine as one of the signs of the end times. In fact, in the very next verse, he calls these the beginning of the suffering at the end. And I'm telling you the timing. This is one of the seals, the first seals, the beginning of the end. These verses show us that God brings famine to punish the wicked, and it was done historically. So this seal famine is going to be worse than anything seen before. Luxuries and an instruction given in the word. Oil and wine were not necessities, and they were in our text. Oil and wine were luxury items or pleasure goods. Deuteronomy 7:13. He will love you, bless you, and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, your grain and your wine and your oil, the increase of your herds and the young of your flock, in the land that he swore to your fathers to give you. This verse puts perspective on these goods, as God promises his people to prosper them if they are obedient. The previous verse literally places these promises as done if the people listen to the rules and keep the rules. The NIV has this as new wine and olive oil, because these were markers of the joyful and prosperous life. MacArthur said oil and wine were to be very carefully used because they would be scarce. And as they are necessary to make bread and other things, they would be supremely scarce because they were used in making necessities beautiful. Now, I will interpret the wine and oil comment to mean that the luxuries, like it said, do not harm or do not touch the oil and wine, luxuries were not to be touched or wasted on the poor. They would be available, but not for the ones who can't afford bread. A denarius for wheat, a denarius for barley. People would be so poor that the wealthy would have no pity on the suffering. That disparity exists right now, and it's going to be worse in the future. The inequality in the distribution of wealth will be exaggerated when that black horse rider goes. Sorry. Other interpretations given from the commentators, I would share some. Henry said the black represented mourning, woe, darkness, and ignorance, while the scales in the writer's hands were a yoke of superstitious observances that were placed on God's people. He said the black horse of ignorance and superstition rode to show the spread of corruption in the church and its members. So God withheld the bread that we are to feed on. This is a famine of the true word. In a sense, we see something like this right now. People want to hear false words, and God withholds the true word. It's not everywhere. And please don't ever think, well, those big churches are doing a good job. No, they're not. I am yet to see a big church that is not promoting seeker sensitive or prosperity gospel nonsense. Okay? And I'm talking Trinidad here. I'm yet to see small churches that don't push prosperity and man-centered nonsense, other than 40 days, obviously. Right? Bengal said the black is gloom. Ban said that the black shows distress and calamity. Ban said the order of the seals and why each specific blessed being was interested in the horseman is not important. Quite curious for him to say that. Benson said the scale represents justice as well as shortage. Pulpit said the oil and wine part was an instruction not to waste it. JFB said that they were to be saved for suffering people. Gill said different things, but that these were not going to be scarce and they were possibly Roman laws or doctrines. Some scholars take this to be totally allegorical in that they point out the necessity for bread to be related to bread of life, which is the word of God. This bread will be inaccessible to men, and the wine and oil will be doctrines that we can preach about, as they will be untouchable too. Now, I disagree with a lot of these, not because I think I'm better than the learned men, but because we have perspective of history that they did not. We can look back and see the seals are not yet open. Those commentators, a lot of them believe they were open. The bowls of wrath have not yet been poured out. Again, because there's order. Seals, then trumpets, then bowls. And if we have not had the seals nor the trumpets, we could not have had the bowls. And some of the commentators thought the bowls were poured out as well. The meanings are not what a lot of these men would have thought. While some may seem plausible, I still disagree because God is doing these things in a logical manner, as seal judgments are not miraculous. Seal judgments are not hand of God shaking the world like the bowls of wrath. He's patiently waiting for the time to unleash a little of his righteous wrath in those bowls. The seal judgments are things that our system of living will bring. God will just remove and gradually pull back his hand of restraint. Each of us, and wicked people out there too, it's not just them. We are all held by God's restraining hand. He is gradually moving his hand of restraint from the wicked. The Spirit indwells God's children, so we won't be like that and be depraved. But as God removes his hand of restraint gradually, more and more depraved things will happen. To conclude the third horse and rider, we can take the scales to possibly represent rationing of necessities. And this makes sense because the red horse's war and strife would deplete all of society's factors of production. If you don't know what the factors of production are, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Land, labor, and capital will be destroyed by war. There'd be nothing to invest in, so entrepreneurship would stifle. War would destroy land and its produce. Modern war would spoil land in such a way that it would not be able to produce any more for decades. Consider nuclear weapon damage, the radiation, chemical warfare, damage of land and water, and minefields being dangerous in the aftermath, so you can't even go into the fields where landmines are. Many armies target food supplies and weapons manufacturing facilities for destruction. And loss of those things, loss of food supplies and weapons manufacturing facilities, means loss of jobs, loss of supplies, loss of future production, as many of those factories are usually converted for use to make weapons from making peacetime goods. So at the end of the war, they'll convert back. But unfortunately, if during the war those things are destroyed, we can't get back our peacetime goods. Of course, wars are won and measured by the number of corpses produced by a side. Somebody said something? Okay. So the most devastating part of the second horse and the second rider is the death that would result from the strife. The final factor of production will be hit too, because there'll be no faith in the market systems due to there being very low levels of political stability. Business people, entrepreneurs, and investors will not want to risk starting enterprise in such an economic climate. This horseman is economics. He represents shortage, not scarcity. Shortage, inflation, inequality, and suffering as a result. The effects would be widespread. Today, there are people partying and wasting expensive food in the same city where others don't have more than scraps from a bin to eat all day. And it will be worse when this time comes. People now save up for weeks to go on a party or a lime to waste their money. The day before this was a movie and table land at 6 p.m. and I heard that some kids were spending $100 bills freely. Some of them would have had to save up for months for that money, and now it's gone. They have nothing to show for it except for some memories and very ugly pictures. The adults do the same when they save up to go out for a weekend and take pictures with champagne, wine glasses at restaurants or beaches to impress unimportant and irrelevant people. Why is society so keen on impressing others? The lifestyle is not going to change as people suffer more. They will seek solace in the pretentiousness and they will hide from God. We must be wise about the company that we keep. Cooper's Corner 147, November 1st. Have faith in the Lord. Believe though you do not see him. Believe and be filled with joy unspeakable and eternal salvation. Here we have some stats to give you. Um, Gross national income per capita in Trinidad increased to 17,940 US dollars in 2023. So if you take this as, say, 18,000, 18 by 7, 7, 8, 56, 717, 126,000 TT dollars annually. In our country, there is a vast number of people that don't even make half of this average, and they have families. Oh, look, I did a calculation here with an exact figure, 121,000 TT dollars annually. This is the average income in 2023 for Trinidad, according to the stats produced by our central bank. Guys, it's an average. There are tons of people, the majority of people who don't even make $100,000 a year, which means that there are a few people that make probably $100,000 in a month or two. October 29th, Israel banned UNRWA from its country because of its members' ties and cooperation with Hamas. A comedian at a Trump rally made an offensive remark about Puerto Rico. North Korean troops were confirmed as being in Russia. Some people suspect that the partnership is promoted by North Korea because North Korea wants assistance going nuclear. At this point, we stop. 40 days recap of our 176th documented session, where we completed the interpretation of the third seal from Revelation chapter 6. Next session, we're continuing right here with number 177. I do thank all the people who are here live. I thank all of you who are watching this on Facebook and or YouTube as well. I'd like to say God bless you and keep you. We will have our next recording at some point soon, hopefully, if God allows. Take care and goodbye.